I almost died from asthma at 70 years old. I thought only kids got it, but turns out I was the easiest target. My name is Robert Johnson and I live in Florida. Let me be blunt. If you think asthma is just a childhood disease, you're making a deadly mistake. I used to think the same way. And that ignorance nearly killed me one night when I woke up gasping, my chest squeezed as if in a vice, coughing so violently I thought my lungs would burst out. The doctor looked at me and said, sharply, "You have asthma. If you had come 10 minutes later, we wouldn't have been able to save you." Chilling, isn't it? For me, it was terrifying. Because months before that night, I'd been ignoring the warning signs. A dry cough that wouldn't go away, especially at night. I thought it was just the weather. Shortness of breath just from walking to the garden. I blamed old age. Tightness in my chest, sometimes wheezing when I breathed. I told myself my lungs were just weak. I dismissed them all, and so did the elderly folks around me. They always said, "At this age, who doesn't cough or get short of breath?" But the truth, that kind of thinking is killing us slowly. Asthma doesn't spare anyone, especially older adults. It's not loud like cancer, not obvious like a stroke, but it can steal your breath in seconds. One nighttime flare-up could stop you from ever waking up again. I'm speaking to you, those who have parents, grandparents, or maybe you yourself are in your later years. Take a hard look. If an elderly person has a lingering cough, constant breathlessness, or chest tightness, don't write it off as just aging. It could be your body screaming a desperate warning. Asthma is attacking. I had to nearly lose my life to realize this truth. You don't need to wait until you're in the ER, lips blue and eyes bulging, before you believe. Remember my words. Asthma in older adults is no joke. And recognizing it early could save a life. Do you want to be the first to know critical health warnings for your loved ones? Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. Right now, I'll share 5 overlooked warning signs of asthma in seniors. Read carefully. This could be what keeps you or someone you love breathing tomorrow. Warning. Sign number 1. Persistent cough, especially at night and early morning. I remember it clearly. About a year before I landed in the hospital, my cough started. At first, just a few dry coughs at night. I thought it was the fan, or maybe just old age. My wife even joked, "If you keep coughing like that, I'll have to buy a whole case of cough syrup for you." But the cough got worse, longer, more violent, especially in the middle of the night and at dawn. I kept waking up, chest tight, throat burning dry. Each cough shook my chest like an earthquake, leaving behind a raw, fiery pain. Still, I brushed it off. Probably just mild bronchitis. That was my biggest mistake, ignoring how persistent it was. A cold or flu cough usually fades in a few days, but asthma-related coughs can linger for weeks, even months. They become part of your daily life, so much so that you get used to it. I got used to carrying tissues everywhere. I got used to the stares when I coughed in the grocery store. Worse, those coughs robbed me of sleep, drained my energy, made me irritable, and even dulled my memory. And I didn't realize that was my body's first serious warning of asthma. The night I was admitted, the doctor said something that still chills me. If you had come in when the cough first started, things would have been much easier. But you waited too long. That was a lesson written in pain. And I'm telling you now, with complete seriousness, if you or a loved one has a lingering cough, especially at night, don't dismiss it as just getting older. It might be the alarm bell you can't afford to ignore. Warning. Sign number 2. Shortness of breath, even with light effort. After months of living with a cough, another change crept in. Every morning, I kept my routine of walking around the neighborhood. I used to walk several laps without any problem, but soon, Just a few steps up the stairs or down the street left me panting like I'd run a marathon. At first I told myself, "Robert, you're 70 now. You can't expect to be as strong as before. Being out of breath is normal. See the danger?" Blaming everything on age made me blind to what was really happening. Aging may slow us down, but it should never make us gasp for air after just a few steps. Every time I went grocery shopping with my wife, I'd find excuses to stop midway. "Give me a second to catch my breath." She grew worried. "Are you sure it's not your heart? Maybe you should see a doctor." I brushed her off. Probably just poor diet. I was wrong, again. The doctor later explained that in older adults, asthma often shows up most clearly as reduced lung capacity during even the slightest exertion. That means something as small as carrying groceries, climbing stairs, or even laughing too hard can leave you breathless. Desperate for air. It's not just a warning sign. It's proof your lungs are being squeezed tighter every day. I'll never forget the terrifying moment one morning when I bent down to tie my shoes, and my chest tightened so badly I had to collapse onto the floor. I broke into a sweat, my face pale. If my neighbor hadn't rushed over to help me, I might have collapsed right there on my doorstep. The real danger of asthma isn't only the sudden attacks, it's the way it silently robs you of strength day by day. You lose the ability to move freely. You lose the joy of a simple walk. You lose your independence. And when that happens, your spirit begins to break down too. Looking back, I wish I had been more alert to the fact that my breath wasn't what it used to be. I wish I had listened to my wife sooner. But life doesn't deal in what-ifs. The brutal truth is this: asthma had already breached the first line of defense, and I had let it slip by. If you're reading this and recognize the signs, nighttime cough, shortness of breath after just a few steps, please don't sit still. Don't wait until you're in the ER like I was. Asthma in old age is not just normal. It can quietly kill you if you keep brushing it off as nothing. Get checked, get tested, and most importantly, tell your loved ones. Warning sign, sure 3. Wheezing, whistling sounds. When breathing, I used to think my breathing noises were just part of getting older. But then my body started making sounds I'd never noticed before. One night, lying in bed, I suddenly heard a faint whistle in my chest, like someone blowing a tiny flute every time I exhaled. I even turned to my wife and asked, "Do you hear that? Feels like there's someone whistling inside my chest." She laughed, thinking I was joking. But within days, the sound grew louder, especially at night, or when the weather changed suddenly, a little chill, and my breathing turned into a strange, unsettling symphony. Wheezing, whistling, heavy. I grew anxious, but then a neighbor, a retired nurse, said, "Sounds like COPD. At your age, asthma's pretty rare." Her words calmed me. I told myself, if it's COPD, that's fine. It's just a lung issue. I can live with that. But I was wrong again. That wheezing wasn't just a sound. It was an urgent warning that my airways were tightening, being strangled little by little. I remember one cold, rainy morning. The moment I stepped outside, my chest vibrated with each breath, as if a snake had coiled inside me, hissing every time I tried to inhale. I rushed back inside, gasping like I just escaped death. Later, the doctor explained, "Wheezing is a classic asthma symptom. COPD and pneumonia can cause similar sounds. But the key difference is, asthma flares up at night or with sudden environmental changes." That explained why I always felt worse at night, why every change in weather forced me to lie on my side, stretching my chest just to squeeze in a little air. I even remember one freezing night, sitting with my knees pulled to my chest, straining to hear whether the wheeze was still there, terrified that if it stopped, it meant I wasn't breathing anymore. That kind of fear, of losing your breath, is something no one should endure. And I believe you don't want your loved ones living in that same dread either. Warning sign number 4. Chest tightness and pressure. If wheezing was the frightening sound, then chest tightness was the silent torture. I once told my daughter, "It feels like someone has placed a heavy stone on my chest, day and night." It wasn't the sharp stabbing pain of a heart attack, but a constant, dull, crushing pressure. I could be sitting quietly watching TV, and still my chest felt bound by invisible ropes. When I tried to take a deep breath, the air no longer filled my lungs as before. It stopped, blocked by some unseen wall. Many times I thought it was heart disease. I went through echocardiograms, EKGs, all sorts of tests. The results, my heart was perfectly fine. Yet my chest still felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand, crushing every breath. That confusion between asthma and heart disease causes so many older adults, myself included, to miss the chance for early treatment. I even took heart medication for months, when in reality, my true enemy was asthma. The difficulty with chest tightness is that it doesn't strike suddenly enough to scare you right away. It wears you down quietly. I started avoiding going out, because even a short walk left me feeling like my chest was locked in a vice. I avoided laughing too hard, because even that would make my chest tighten. Even my sleep was stolen, as I often woke at 3 a.m. rubbing my chest, desperate for air. The doctor once told me something that haunts me still. Asthma doesn't just steal your breath. It steals your freedom. When you can't breathe freely, you slowly lose the ability to live normally. And I felt every word of it. I lost the freedom of morning walks. I lost the freedom to talk long with friends. I lost the freedom to play with my grandson. Because just a few minutes of fun left me clutching my chest. But the hardest part wasn't the physical discomfort. It was the invisible fear pressing down on my mind. You can't truly understand it until one night your chest tightens in the dark. You open your mouth wide, but the air doesn't come. I've lived that horror, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Looking back, I realize wheezing and chest tightness were two bright red flags my body had raised early. But I ignored them, thinking it was COPD, heart trouble, or nothing serious. The price I nearly paid was my life. I share this not to complain, but to warn you. If you hear whistling in your parents' breathing, if they complain of heavy pressure in the chest, don't hesitate. Don't let them wander through endless heart and lung tests before uncovering the real culprit. Think of asthma. Get it checked early. Asthma doesn't kill in a single day, but it drains your breath hour by hour. And when a full-blown attack strikes, any delay could be too late. Warning sign number 5. Recurring shortness of breath. Triggered by seasons or environment. There's one thing I once brushed off as trivial, until it nearly killed me. Recurring shortness of breath tied to the seasons. I live in Florida, where spring brings a storm of pollen. Summer is damp and humid, and winter chills arrive without warning. I noticed that whenever the weather shifted, my breathing turned into a battle. In spring, when pollen filled the air, I couldn't step outside without coughing violently. Each time I opened a window, the fresh air didn't refresh me. It tightened my chest, burning my lungs like fire. I remember one morning when I spent just 15 minutes pulling weeds in the yard. I ended up rushing inside, clutching my chest, gasping for oxygen like a drowning man. In summer, humidity became the enemy. After a single rainstorm, the moist air felt like I was breathing through a tiny straw. One night during a blackout, with no AC, trapped in a hot, damp room, I nearly suffocated. I sat up, doors wide open, fanning myself desperately, and still couldn't get enough air. In winter, the cold was a blade. Cold air sliced into my lungs, tightening my airways instantly. One morning, walking out of the supermarket into a chilly wind, my chest clamped so hard I had to lean on a wall. My vision blurred, and bystanders thought I was having a heart attack. They called 911. But it wasn't my heart. It was asthma once again. The worst part was the unpredictability. These episodes came and went over and over, lulling me into false comfort. When I felt better, I told myself, just allergies, or just today's cold snap, or just the humidity. But the next time, the attacks came back fiercer, faster, more dangerous. That's asthma. It doesn't knock, doesn't warn. It strikes when you're weakest. And older adults like us often misjudge it, thinking it's allergies, weather, or pneumonia. In reality, it's the repeated cycle, the loud and clear signal that asthma is attacking your lungs. One autumn night, a cold draft slipped through a window crack. I woke up wheezing, feeling like someone was squeezing my throat shut. I stumbled into the living room, but the harder I tried to breathe, the less air I got. My wife panicked and called 911. The doctor said bluntly, "This was an asthma flare triggered by weather change. 10 more minutes, and you might not have made it." That moment chilled me to the bone. These recurring flare-ups weren't random. They had a pattern. They were tied to pollen, dust, pet dander, sudden cold. And if you don't stay alert, they'll come back season after season until you no longer have a chance to fight back. I'm not writing this for pity. I'm writing so you'll stay sharp. We seniors don't have the resilience we once did. A small shortness of breath can drag us straight to the edge. And the cruel truth is, too many of us keep believing it's just allergies, just weather. Please don't make that mistake. If your parents, grandparents, or you yourself notice repeated breathing trouble triggered by seasons or environment, treat it as a blazing red flag for asthma. Don't wait until you're clutching your chest in the dark, praying for one more breath. So now I've shared with you the 5 warning signs of asthma in older adults that are too often overlooked, from persistent cough, breathlessness, wheezing, chest pressure, to seasonal flare-ups. I was careless. I nearly died. But you don't have to. Believe me, you're not powerless. There are ways to manage asthma, to reclaim your breath, to reclaim your life. And that's exactly what I'll share with you next. Solutions and advice to help seniors live well with asthma. Solutions and advice. After everything I've been through, from the endless coughs to the near-fatal asthma attack, I've learned one thing. Knowing the disease is not enough. What truly matters is taking action. If you or your loved ones are showing the same signs I did, please don't hesitate. Let me share the steps I took to keep my breath and my life up to this day. Lesson 1. See a doctor early. Don't self-diagnose. I used to be the kind of person who loved to guess my own illnesses. Cough? Probably a cold. Short of breath? Just old age. Chest tightness? Must be the heart. I bought my own meds, took over-the-counter syrups, even used cough medicine a neighbor gave me. The result, my condition only worsened. By the time I was rushed to the ER, it was almost too late. That's when I finally understood. Only a doctor can truly know what's happening inside your chest. The day I decided to get a proper checkup, the doctor ordered a lung function test, X-rays, and allergy tests. The results not only confirmed asthma, but also identified specific triggers that put me at risk. I still remember the doctor's words. Asthma in older adults is never simple. You need personalized treatment. If you keep self-medicating, your risk of death is several times higher. From that moment on, I made a strict rule for myself. Any unusual respiratory symptom means I see a doctor right away. No guessing, no waiting, no self-medicating. Lesson 2. Stick to treatment. Discipline is survival. When I was first prescribed medication, I thought, if I feel better after a few days, I can stop. That was another big mistake. Asthma is not like the flu. It doesn't go away on its own. It requires long-term, sometimes lifelong management. The doctor gave me 2 kinds of medicine. Rescue inhaler, for sudden attacks when I couldn't breathe. Controller medication, to be taken every day to prevent further inflammation. At first, I often forgot. Some days, if I felt fine, I skipped my meds. And within days, the shortness of breath came roaring back, stronger than before. I had to retrain myself to see each dose not as a burden, but as a shield protecting my breath. I started labeling my inhaler. Every breath is worth it. I set alarms on my phone to make sure I never missed a dose. Over time, taking my meds became as routine as brushing my teeth. Here's what I want you to know. Asthma treatment is not a one-day or one-week affair. It's a lifelong commitment. And following the treatment plan is the only way to keep living freely with this disease. Lesson 3. Change your lifestyle. Make breathing the #1 priority. I never believed my environment had much to do with asthma, but then I realized even a little dust, a cat, or a gust of cold wind could become a knockout punch to my lungs. So I made changes. I gave up smoking cigars with friends. I removed thick carpets and cut down on dust-catching items in the house. I bought an air purifier and always wore a mask outdoors. In cold weather, I wrapped a scarf over my nose so the air was warm before reaching my lungs. These small steps have saved me more times than I can count. I also learned breathing techniques. My doctor taught me pursed lip breathing. Inhale through the nose. Exhale slowly through the mouth. Simple, but it helped me stay calm during attacks. By practicing daily, my lungs grew stronger, and I no longer panicked every time I struggled to breathe. Gentle exercise was also key. I once believed asthma meant I had to avoid physical activity. The truth is the opposite. The right kind of exercise strengthens the lungs. I began with short walks, breathing-focused yoga, and gradually regained confidence in my body. Lesson 4. Family, the protective shield. You can't live without. I am lucky to have a wife and daughter who stood by me. They were the first to notice my nighttime coughs. They were the ones who called 911 when I almost stopped breathing. And they remind me to take my meds, to go for checkups, and to live healthier. We older folks are stubborn. I'm fine. I can handle it myself. But the truth is, we need our families to watch and support us. Many times, I didn't notice my own wheezing, but my wife heard it. Many times I thought I was just tired. But my daughter knew it was something dangerous. Asthma is not just my fight. It's a family's fight. And with their support, my chances of living well are many times greater. So if you ask me the secret to living with asthma at 70, here's my answer. See a doctor early. Don't self-diagnose. Don't wait. Stick to treatment. Take medication as if it were part of your life. Change your lifestyle. Avoid triggers. Practice breathing. Stay active. Rely on family. Don't fight this alone. I once underestimated asthma and nearly lost my life. But today, I'm sharing this story because I am still breathing, still living. And I want you, or your loved ones, to have the same chance. Asthma may not be curable, but believe me, it can be controlled. And every right step you take is another safe breath you keep. If my story makes you think of someone you love, leave a like, share a comment, and let us know you're with us. And don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because the next piece of advice might be exactly what keeps your family healthy.